Hello, Saving Grace Homeschool. I'm James, and today we're going to be doing a maths lesson focusing on rounding to significant figures. So the learning objective for today is to be able to round to significant figures, and the success criteria to recall and use the rules of rounding up and down, to be able to round any integer to a significant value, to understand and explain the difference between rounding to decimal places, and rounding to significant figures. Starter, what's your capacity? Rounding rules. Okay, so what are our rounding rules? 4 or less, let it rest, and 5 or more, let it soar. So what that means is if it's below the halfway point, then we're gonna make it go down. Let me maybe write some stuff. So if it's below the halfway point, then it's gonna be rounded down, and if it's the halfway points are above, then it's gonna be rounded up. So let's say we have simple example, I might do a couple, 13, and we're going to round to the nearest 10. It's 4 or less, so it will go to 10. And then if it's above the halfway point, let's say, I actually said 27, that is above the halfway point of 25. So something like 27 can be rounded either down or up to 20 or 30 respectively. But because we want the nearest to the nearest 10 in this case, it will be rounded up because it's above the halfway point. So in between 20 and 30 is 25. So anything 25 or above will be rounded up. So this will go to 30. And then if you have 55, let's say, this will be rounded up to 60 because convention says that the halfway point will be rounded up, because 55 is halfway between 50 and 60. So if you look at 55 just on its own and you didn't know the rule, it could be rounded down to 50 or up to 60 because it's halfway between it. But because we know that the rule is that if it's a halfway point, it will be rounded up. It will become 60 when rounded to the nearest 10. Just a quick recap. Now we move on to significant figures. Sometimes we do not always need to give detailed answers to problems. We can estimate an answer. To do this, we can use significant figures. In maths, or anywhere really, significant means to have value. Examples. In the number 2,795, the 2 is the most significant digit because it tells us that the number is 2,000 and something. So this is the most significant digit here. So with a number, a whole number without decimals, so any number to the left of the decimal point, the biggest number is the most significant. However, in the number 0.052, 5 is the most significant digit. So it's the largest number in any number, basically. So if we had 2.038, this is the most significant digit because it is the largest number and it has the biggest impact on what the number is overall. But if this was 0.038, then the 3 would be the most significant. When we round to significant figures, we start counting as soon as we reach a number that is not 0. So we want to round 37 to one significant figure, which means that we want one significant figure and then zeros after that. So here we need to see, it's one significant figure. To work out if 30 will remain the same or round up to 40, we need to look at the column to its right, the units column. So we want to look at this, the 7. In this case, the number next to it is worth 7 units, so we round our 30 up to 40. Because the 7 is above the halfway point. So remember I said that 37 could be rounded down or up. It can't actually, but if you're not rounding to the nearest thing. But it's above the halfway point of 35, so it will be rounded up when rounded to the nearest 10. So in this case, we will round 37 to 40, and then this will be the answer. 40 has one significant figure, the 4. And 0 is not a significant figure because it has no value. Now for this exercise, round 153 to two significant figures. Okay, so two significant figures. Remember, from the left always is because that's where the larger numbers are. So these are the two significant figures, and then we want zeros after that. So we need to determine if we're going to round 153 up or down, because we want the number on the end, the number after the second significant figure, to be a zero to make sure that there's only two significant figures. So remember, we need to look to the right of the 50 to find out if this will remain 50 or will be rounded up to 60. So we have 153, and 53 is below the halfway point between 50 and 60, and the halfway point is 55, so it'll be rounded down to 150. So on this occasion, because the number to its right is a 3, it means 153 rounded to two significant figures is 150. Remember, 0 is not a significant figure, so these are the significant figures, 1 and 5. But it still has a value of 150, even though this is not a significant figure. What would 153 rounded to one significant figure be? So we just want one significant figure and then zeros afterwards. So we need to look to the right of our 100, the 1, to find out if this will remain the same or be rounded to 200. So is this number above the halfway point of 150 or below the halfway point? It's above, so it will be rounded up to 200, and this means that 153 rounded to one significant figure will be 200. There we go. Answer the following questions by applying your understanding of rounding significant figures. Round 45 to one significant figure. I want you to do all of these and then press play, and then I'll go through them with you. Okay, so that'll be rounded up because it's above, well, it is the halfway point between 40 and 50. 45 is the halfway point, so it'll be rounded up to 50. So there it has one significant figure. Okay, now we need to round 192 to two significant figures. So we need to determine if this is going to round down to 190 or round up to 200. And it's going to round down because 2 below the halfway point. So it's going to round down to 190. Sally says that 136.248 rounded to two significant figures is 136.25. Explain the mistake Sally has made and what is the correct answer. So she has rounded to two decimal places instead of two significant figures. So remember, the significant figures are always the larger numbers. So we want two significant figures. So we have 136.248, and we need to determine if this, so we want 1, so the 1 will stay the same, and then we either going to have a 4 here or a 3 here. So we're going to have 130 or 140. So we need to determine if 136 is above the halfway point or below the halfway point between 130 and 140. And in this case, it is above the halfway point, so it'll be rounded up, and we'll have 140 as the correct answer for having two significant figures. So always look to the left of the decimal place first. If there's only zeros to the left of the decimal place, then only do we look to the right of the decimal point, and then look at those significant figures. Explain the difference between rounding to significant figures and rounding to decimal places. Extension. Can you link your explanation to the FA Cup final? Round 0.00287 to two significant figures. So I'll leave that as an exercise to you. But remember what I said, that this is the most significant figure. These are the most significant figures over here because zeros don't count as significant figures. And there's nothing, because 0, I said, doesn't count as a significant figure. There's nothing to the left of the decimal point. So if I were to do this, I hope this is the right way. I hope this is correct, but I would get 0. Okay, so can't change the numbers above. So these won't change. So the numbers above the most significant actual numbers can't change, but we need two significant numbers going to the right now. So we have 287 here, and we need to figure out if it's going to be 0.00 280 or 0.00290. So is this going to go up or down? And the 7 here is above the halfway point of 0. So this can be rounded to, so let me write here 0.00287. This can be rounded to two different things, as all numbers can when rounding to a significant figure. It can be rounded down to 0.00280, or it can be rounded up to 0.00. What is it? 0. Just undo. Yeah, 0.00290. Okay, and in this case, it's above the halfway point. So the halfway point here would be in between these two numbers would be 0.00285. So this is the halfway point between these two numbers, right? And we need to see if this number is above this halfway point or below this halfway point. And in this case, this is above the halfway point. So the answer to this will be 0.00290. And then just as a small extension on that, so we know that, okay, just a side note here, 0.10 is the same as 0.1, right? Because the 0 doesn't have any impact on the size of the number. But it's obviously not the same as, you can't just get rid of a 0 like this if it's to the left of the decimal point. So 10 does not equal 1. But numbers after the decimal point, the last 0 is negligible. So you can actually just ignore it. You don't have to write it. You can write it, but you don't have to. So as a final answer here, I would write 0.0029. And then I'd leave this other 0 out because you don't actually need it. So can you see how this is equal? 0.10, 0.1 is the same because this 0 actually has no impact on the number. And the same applies here. So now that we've rounded to two significant figures, here are the two significant figures, by the way, the 2 and the 9. The zeros have no, they do have an impact, but they are not significant figures. So it wouldn't just be, because I said the left numbers are the largest, it wouldn't just be 0.0 because, like I said, these are not significant figures. So you need to take into account things that actually have value here. So we rounded this first, and we decided if it was above the halfway point or below the halfway point, and we decided it was above the halfway point, so we rounded it up to 0.00290. And then just to be a little bit extra clever, we dropped the last 0 because it's unnecessary. So here is the final answer in this little box over here. And that is the end of today's lesson.